with that said, let's go ahead, open up the science lab here. Well, I shouldn't say the science lab. Open up your notepads. Click your pens. And let's get ready to walk into the scientific method. Hey, Pat, I don't want no problems. No problems with .com. Listen, I don't know nothing about no science lab over here.
Listen. Take it easy.
Oh, man. What's good, bro?
Because if the .com try to go at you, then I got to jump in front of that, and I got to play arbitrator. Like, you know what I mean? Let me be great.
Hey, look. We'll tease that later, but I slipped up there, boy. Listen, I'm going to have to redact that. We're going to have to be, welcome, Patrik, no C. Walker, to the scientific method. Good morning, good sir. How you feeling?
What's up? I'm good. How you doing, King?
I'm fantastic, man. Let me say this real quick. Shouts out to you, brother. You and how you're handling these trolls. You are taxing them at the bridge this week because Philly fans are in shambles, and I absolutely love it. Oh, I love what you're doing.
Oh, man. It's just light work, bro. It is light work, to say the least. I mean, like, they are the lines of cope that they're snorting this week, it's enough to make Scarface jealous. Like, yeah, but we're bathing in that because this is what you get. Like, you can't give out smoke for weeks and weeks on end over a 5-point victory in Week 9. You know, at that point, talking about how our season is over and how the division race is over, and coming at me and my mentions for that 4 or 5 week period or longer, talking about how the Cowboys got dominated, how the Eagles won in convincing fashion. I mean, these are actual English words that were being used to describe a 5-point win that came down to a knee, a toenail, and a false start. So then, okay, if that's how you want to play it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this entire ass whooping that you took. But then now they want to say, oh, no, you saw the one I responded to yesterday. The score doesn't tell the story. Oh, doesn't it? It doesn't? You're right. It doesn't tell the story because it should have been like 60 to 6. Yeah, it should have been like 60 to 6. But anyway, man, it's Thursday morning. I mean, and people like you, myself, and the other analysts, I mean, we've been having our fun with it, but we've also been on to the Bills for a couple of days now. The Eagles, they couldn't tell you who they play this weekend because they're still hurting.
They still hurt. And what they fail to realize with you, man, is that the pen you use, the ink is actually lava, bro. They don't understand that. They really don't. And I love it. I love sitting back and watching you just obliterate them with your words, bro. But let's, like you said, let's go ahead, let's move on. We had our fun. It's time to focus our attention on what I believe is a better team, and that is the Buffalo Bills. But before we do that, can you give us an update on the Cowboys practice report? Because I gave the folks an update on the Bills, but Dallas had a lot of guys sitting out yesterday.
Yeah, Wednesday, it's a veteran rest day for a lot of guys. So, of course, that lengthened the injury report for the Cowboys. But it was also a walkthrough as well. So when I look in, I see someone like Malik Hooker, who's dealing with an ankle, and he was DNP, did not participate on yesterday. That would have raised an eyebrow if it was a full practice, but it was a walkthrough. So for me, it just means it's something to keep an eye on. Let's see what the injury report looks like today for a guy like Malik Hooker. Will he be limited? If he's DNP again today, then I wouldn't say I'm going to DEFCON 1, but my eyebrow would raise and say, okay, well, what's his actual availability odds?
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes today. Obviously, the headline is going to be Jonathan Hankins. Hankins suffered a high ankle sprain. Being described to me as mild. I asked a couple people around the building on yesterday and the day before, what's the temperature as far as potential IR, and they kind of shrugged that off, and that gives me the implication that he's not an IR candidate as we have this conversation. So the Cowboys, it seems like the Cowboys feel confident that this might just be like a 2-game situation, if that. So they're going to play it this week and sit him, which is what it looks like. I asked McCarthy about it directly yesterday, and he said, quote unquote, he'd be hard pressed to take the field against the Bills. So I'd go ahead and scratch him against the Bills for everyone out there listening. But he does have a shot Might be a long shot right now, but he does have at least a shot of taking the field against the Dolphins. But
That's
as far as IR,
huge.
IR is not in the discussion right now. So even if it's a situation still where he is out 2 weeks, that's Buffalo, that's Miami, that still puts him on the field against the Detroit Lions, which is a massive NFC game.
No, yeah.
So right now, it looks like he could dodge IR. They keep using the word mild when it comes to me. Not a lot of concern. That's the kind of phrases that are being used. So fingers crossed that stays the course with Jonathan Hankins.
Have you heard down there if they're going to bring up Carl Davis?
That's the expectation. So in speaking with some folks and then speaking with McCarthy on yesterday, it sounds as if Carl Davis will get his first practice squad elevation this weekend. He was signed on the back end of November, I think November 28th, 29th, something like that. He's been on the practice squad, and that timing could not have been more fortuitous. Because obviously gave the Cowboys some depth at the position. Unbeknownst to them, a couple, 2-3 weeks later, they would lose Jonathan Hankins for possibly a couple games or so. So just fantastic scouting and personnel work done by Stephen and Will and Jerry and Mike, just staying on top of that. So Carl Davis, former third-round pick. Not an older guy, not necessarily the youngest guy. He's right there, in the middle, mid-late 20s. He's got 19 NFL starts under his belt, so he's, not a ton, but he's played some NFL football as a starter, and that's going to be, massive for the Cowboys. I equate him to, hopefully, we'll see what he can do on the field, but hopefully he can be for them what like Chuma Edoga was. Right, so you bring in that veteran, and you're hoping that you don't need him, but then if you need him, you're hoping he can step in and be an effective player like Chuma was. So hopefully Carl on the defensive side can be what Chuma was on the offensive line, and that'll take a lot of pressure off of Mozzie Smith, but that doesn't mean there won't be added pressure on Mozzie Smith, because there will be added pressure on Mozzie Smith.
Yes.
He's going to get more reps. He's going to get more burn. He's going to have to, ramp up his development pretty quickly here in the absence of Jonathan Hankins.
I think there's going to be a ton of pressure on those guys without Jonathan Hankins. And honestly, this defense in general is going to have some pressure put on them because a guy like Josh Allen over there on the other side of the ball he's a tough dude, man. He's a tough dude, literally, physically. He's tough, and he's kind of tough to prepare for because what he can do on the ground and through the air. But to you, what makes Josh Allen one of the tougher guys to deal with and prepare for opposing defenses?
It's the same thing that made Donovan McNabb difficult to deal with, and that's one of the comps that keeps popping in my head when I think of Josh Allen, and that's because if you forced Donovan McNabb to throw from the pocket, he could make all the throws from the pocket, but he was equally, if not more so, willing to take off and run when he needed to take off and run. But when he took off and run, the guy was a unit. And Josh Allen is a unit. So getting him down on the ground, that's a much more daunting task than, trying to get like a Kyler Murray who's more shifty, but once you get your hands on him, you got your hands on him. Josh Allen, once you have your hands on him, that doesn't mean he's going to the ground. It might mean you're going to the ground, but he might still be running after the attempted tackle. So Josh Allen is difficult in the capacity of you want to treat him like Jalen Hurts in the aspect of you need to keep him in the pocket and keep contained. But where he differs from Jalen Hurts is once he's in the pocket and contained and you delete the ability for him to escape, now you have to collapse the pocket and you have to get hands on him and you have to sack him. It's not enough to simply just say, okay, we got him in the pocket, let's see what he can do. Well, what he can do if you just give him the perfect pocket. It's not about testing his arm. He has the arm, right? And he has the playmakers, Stefon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, the list goes on and on, James Cook out of the backfield. So he can surgically dissect you in that fashion if you don't apply pressure. But if you apply pressure, that pipe will burst, and it will burst again and again and again. And he's the kind of guy that he's boom or bust still. So either he's going to have 4 touchdowns and 400 yards with, none or 1 interception, or he's going to give you 3 interceptions and a fumble with only 175 yards, and he's going to be the reason they lost the game. The latter is what the Cowboys are looking for, but it begins with not only forcing him to stay in the pocket, not only keeping contained, but you got to get to him and you got to get him on the ground.
Indeed, man, and you absolutely have to be able to cover his top guys on that back end, right? He's got some playmakers back there, and his number one playmaker is obviously Stefon Diggs. And we have our own Stephon, right? Stephon Gilmore, who
Right.
Gilly, man, he on a hot streak, brother. He on a nice little hot streak, and I know he's about to go into a cold environment, but it's a familiar environment. You wrote an article about
Exactly.
Gilly going back to Buffalo, and I think that matchup is key. Do you have a feel that they'll continue this kind of star coverage situation? I know they haven't been keeping Gilly on one guy the whole game, but this feels like, hey man, let's ride the hot hand here.
Yeah, this is as close to traveling as you'll probably get when it comes to the Cowboys secondary, because they don't necessarily, Dan Quinn doesn't necessarily like to assign one guy to one guy and then travel that guy. But you've seen Gilly travel enough where you can, you could presume that that's going to be the case against a guy who's targeted as heavily as Stefon Diggs is. And then when you look at the heater that Stephon Gilmore is on as far as coverage and tackling and being right there on the guy's hip, I think it just makes sense. And then, of course, he's getting some top secret inside intel from Stefon Diggs, and has been since training camp. So there's plenty of information on Stefon Diggs for Stephon Gilmore to dissect, including film. Obviously, he said on yesterday that even though he's getting some insight from Trayvon, that's not going to undermine his weekly tradition of dissecting the film on the guys that he's going to cover. And the thing about Gilmore is, I know he's not the fastest guy, but especially after what A.J. Brown said to him, I think that he's looking to be much more physical than he's been in the past couple of years, and that's what you saw against A.J. Brown. Now, here's where that comes into play against Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs is easily one of the most explosive wide receivers in the league, easily. But he can be frustrated very easily if you get physical with him. You get your hands on him and push him around a little bit, you can knock him off of his game mentally. And if that then causes, or knocking him off of his routes and off of his timing, if that then causes Josh Allen to look away from him, then put your eyes to the sidelines, because you're going to start to see Stefon Diggs' attitude toward Josh change over the course of the game. And then, gotcha. So when it comes to Stefon Diggs, it's more so about disrupting his timing. Try to get him on the press if you can. Don't give him free releases. And the safeties are going to be stressed to do their job in a big way. Malik Hooker, as he roams center field like that, whether it be single high with Malik or a double high and you're dropping Curse down, or whatever you do, whatever you need to do, however you need to figure it out, you need to draw a circle around Stefon Diggs, because if you can delete him from the game, which also goes to deleting Josh Allen by sacking him and taking him down, then you have a massive chance of winning. And when it comes to weather, I'm glad you brought that up really quickly. So many of these Dallas Cowboys don't necessarily know what it feels like to play in Buffalo in December. The good news is if the weather holds up as it stands right now, it'll just be perfect football weather.
Yes.
Okay. Upper 40s, maybe tap dance at around 50, moderate wind, cloudiness, but the sun peeking through with no precipitation. If that holds, weather's not that much of a factor. But if it were to dip a little bit, or you get some of that random lake effect stuff, nothing Stephon Gilmore isn't accustomed to. He's a former 10th overall pick from guess who? The Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
Spent 5 years with the Bills, and then guess where he went? The New England Patriots. So, and then not only was he playing at Gillette in that weather, but guess who had to play twice a year? The Buffalo Bills. So he knows Orchard Park. He knows how to play in front of that fan base. He knows how to play in front of that in that weather. So it's more as a homecoming for him. So I expect him to have a big game.
I had a stint in Erie for a couple years, it was adjacent to Buffalo and very similar weather. Let me tell you something right now. 48, winds of 8 to 10 or so miles per hour, sun is out. That's a balmy spring day, bro. That is a balmy spring day. As long as you got the heated benches, we're not playing in the poverty franchise in Washington where they ain't got heated benches.
Yeah.
As long as
we
you
don't
got
have we don't have to take hours.
Nah, long sleeves with the coat, you're good to go. Talking about here, 48 degrees? We play football. 48 degrees is football weather. Come on.
Dude, 48 degrees in mid-December in upstate New York.
Spring.
I mean, like, the football gods, again, as long as this holds, I want to keep saying that because I don't want to piss off the football gods by assuming, but based on what the football gods are telling the meteorologists to tell us, It's looking good right now, and if that stays the case, then weather will not be a factor, and that completely takes a lot of leverage away from the Bills, and it just evens the scales, and then it's just about who's the better team, who wants it more, who's going to commit the fewest amount of self-inflicted wounds.
Indeed, man. We got Patrik No C Walker, DallasCowboys.com, joining us. Can you give us a Science Lab TM teaser or your article that you're going to have this week? Hey, Derek, you see I TM that, right? So we good.
Yeah.
We good, Derek.
I can't with you, bro. I can't. All right, so
it's all love.
Science Lab drops this morning on the .com, typically around 10 a.m. Central Time, no later than 11 a.m. Central Time. But this week we're going to focus on Brandon Aubrey. The last time I dedicated a Science Lab to Brandon Aubrey, it was right as he was he was on the cusp of potentially breaking the NFL record for most consecutive field goals to start an NFL career. But I think it was like 3 or 4 kicks before then, because he was already on the heater. That made me wonder if he could be better than Dan Bailey's rookie season. Well, now fast forward to where he is now, and he has already surpassed that. But doing a deeper dive into the numbers, what was eye-opening to me was, and this is a huge spoiler, but you still got to read it to see how I came to this conclusion. Brandon Aubrey deserves to be in the Rookie of the Year conversation, but not just in the conversation. He deserves to be a front runner. And I know who he's going up against, and I talk about that in the article as well. But if you go back, and I did, I went back and I looked at the history of the Offensive Rookie of the Year award and the NFL Rookie of the Year award over the span of, since 1955, over the span of 6 different voting platforms, and it's going to drop your jaw how infrequently a place kicker gets their respect. But now needs to be the time, because if you're ever going to give a place kicker his respect in that fashion, it's got to be Brandon Aubrey based on what he's doing. So check out Science Lab. It is deep dive, robust. It's delicious. It's seasoned well, and just feed yourself this morning.
Seasoned well. Hey, that sounds at the sidelines hilarious. But Patrik No C Walker, DallasCowboys.com. Appreciate you, my brother, man. Make sure y'all check him out later today with that fantastic article on the Science Lab.
Yes, all right, sir. Brother. Talk to you at 11 and 3.
Indeed. Peace. Thanks for watching, and make sure to follow and subscribe to A to Z Dallas so you don't miss an episode of The Scientific Method. Every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Central on Facebook and YouTube, with every episode available on A to Z Sports.com.